Welcome everybody to this week's episode of Extracurricular. We've got the brilliant Shannie Mears with us today of Elephant Room and countless other pieces of fame. And we're going to be talking mainly about networking. Shannie's got loads of great tips in that regard, and also about LinkedIn, which I know I've written a piece in the past on Intern about how important and useful a platform it is, but anything I know about that thing, like times it by 1,000 and then take another couple numbers from the top and bottom, and you kind of get to where Shannie's at. So
oh
lots
my God,
lots.
Alex, that's so funny.
Well, it's true though, isn't it? It's true. So yeah, lots hopefully to unpack today. We've got just under an hour. We're going to try and answer a bunch of the questions that have already been sent in, but as you can hopefully see at the bottom, there's that little question mark button. If you want to send a question in, please use that. That way I'll definitely see it. We won't lose it in the comments, and we'll try and get through as many questions as we can. So I'm going to zip it now. And for those who don't know Shan already, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself.
Hey, so like Alex says, my name's Shannie Mears. I am the co-founder and head of talent for a creative agency called The Elephant Room. We are literally just about to turn 3 years old in June, so we're not that old at all. But everything we do is about honesty and inclusion, and making sure that the elephant in the room is always addressed. So I'm head of talent there, and that's all about building out our collaborative sort of space for talent. So whether that be hiring, whether that be programs, whether that be partnerships. So I head up a lot of that. I'm also like loads of different things, but I'm also the former brand and talent manager for Guap magazine. So if anyone knows Guap magazine, they are known initially for being the world's first video magazine, but also now a multi sort of digital platform that exists on Instagram, website, a podcast studio, and I've helped build that out. So I left there last year. I run a network called the Guest List, which is about 1,000 people, well, just over 1,000 people, which is all about opportunity and people exchanging collaborative things around access. So that whether that be opportunity, whether that be networks, whether that be events, everything. I am a policy advisor, but I sit on the board as an advisory board member for the race disparity unit, and that is basically breaking down a lot of the stuff that exists within education, creative, health, like loads of different things. So I do that at Down the Street amongst some other people. I manage a DJ. I love music. I have a platform called Girls Let's Talk. I teach dance. Yeah, there's loads of different stuff that I do, but I suppose they're like some of the main stuff that I've done throughout my career, and obviously that sort of helped me get here. Yeah.
Amazing. And I guess kind of like central to a lot of those projects and those roles that you mentioned is kind of community and community building. So I guess to get us started, like when did you kind of realize that was something that you were really good at? And how did you kind of start turning that into jobs?
I think when I actually realized I was good at it, it was genuinely probably when I got my first intern role, which is like 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. But subconsciously, I'd say I've been doing it ever since I was about 9, 10. Like subconsciously, I've always been involved in like community-driven projects. I've always sat on I used to do funding panels, and like it was something called the Youth Opportunity Fund, and we would go through applications and give away grants. But that was it was just something I was interested in. It wasn't necessarily something I thought, oh yeah, I'm going to do this for a living, or oh my gosh, this is great. Like I want to do this till the end of time. And then I realized when I was at the agency, and I realized how so much culture was absorbed, and how much it was to do with community, and ultimately you had to get an audience understanding or insight or whatever. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so me. I was literally this is so me. I literally live for news and media and music and all of this. this is legit the space I want to be in. And then I suppose like ever since then, it's just sort of continued, and it's like been a ripple effect. So WAP was like completely organic. I had like, you know, me and Ibrahim became friends online. Then when I moved to London, automatically he was just like, yeah, I think you should join the team. And then and again, like it literally just continued to build. And for me, I'm really big on like exchanging value. Like if I can do something for you that's like super valuable, and you can do something for me that's super valuable, then let's work together. Like let's do something. Let's see what can happen. And I think for me, that's kind of always been the foundation of it. So yeah, I feel like that's kind of it. It's like that answers the question. But yeah.
Yeah, I think you did. So when you were talking about the agency, was that we have a question here? Was that Iris that you were at?
What was your process of becoming an intern at Iris? Yeah. So initially, I became an intern at Iris because I went through an internship program called Digify, which was set up by an agency called Liberty. So Liberty had a sort of initiative, I suppose, as a program, which is all about getting young people who have never had advertising experience, and they come from ethnic minority backgrounds to get into advertising. And 10 different agencies had signed up to that. So it was like guaranteed 8 months. So what they would do is that they would train you for 2 months. So it was like a short course in advertising. And then you would have like a round interview. And then from then, the agencies that were signed up, they would interview you and they would pick who they wanted. Iris was a part of that. And then I had got chosen to go to Iris. Cool. So that was the process.
Cool. And that like and that was your first kind of, you had no background in terms of like training in advertising, but that was your kind of like first, I guess, interaction with the advertising world completely.
Yeah, because I had the relationship with Liberty, and essentially I had never heard them describe themselves as an advertising agency, so I didn't actually realize that that's what they were doing. But then I realized they were a creative hub and a creative agency that were helping brands do stuff, but I didn't actually know what that was called or what industry that existed in. And it was only when I actually then obviously applied for the internship, recommended by them, then I realized like, oh, okay, this is it. Okay, this is kind of cool. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I suppose I started to go through that process of understanding what the industry is.
So, I mean, one thing I just want to quickly kind of unpack there is the fact that Liberty hadn't struck you at that point as like an agency. They kind of, I guess, two things. Like, I guess, what was your perception prior to that of what they were doing, and was the fact that they were, I guess, kind of more shouting about like the initiatives that they were building rather than like what they were. Do you think that was, in hindsight, like a really effective way of reaching out to, wider communities and kind of getting people interested that maybe wouldn't be?
I thought it was great. Like they were essentially like, when they were telling me, when I started my relationship with them, I knew them for doing Live magazine, which was like a childhood read for me. So I didn't associate that at all with industry, like, advertising industry. And then there was also an initiative called Somewhere To, which was all about like giving free event space for young people aged 16 to 30. And again, like not something I see advertising agencies doing. So I genuinely didn't look at them that way. It's only when I realized that they were the ones doing all these different initiatives, and I was like, oh, like you guys are doing all of this, like this is super cool. And I suppose it's always worked in their favor to sort of do things differently, and they were like the hub for the youth, and do you know what I mean, the go-to for what young people want. And I appreciated that at the time. Like it was really cool because I felt like I'm one of those young people, and I sort of became their their plug for Birmingham. So like, like lots of things are like, quite London centric. So I remember hosting like a girls like a sort of insight session at uni on behalf of them, and like all my friends like got like 20 or 30 pounds, and it was really cool. And I was like, what is this? Not knowing that I was actually doing like an insight group, like not knowing I was doing all of this, but they allowed me to experience that. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like that's what I really appreciated, because then when I was talking about my experience, or when I'm talking about things I've done, I'm like, oh, well, I've hosted this, and I've facilitated that, and I've also had relationships outside of, and I've been the go-to person. Do you know what I mean? And I've been able to build that off that.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It's kind of like at the time you maybe don't know how to kind of like package up the experience that you're gaining, or even that it's like experience in that kind of context. But I guess that was a real key part to your being onboarded at Liberty, just understanding that those different things, like, they had a name within that spectrum, and they also had like this real point of value.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
100%.
amazing. We'll carry on with on the theme of like early days, Shannie. Is there any advice you wish you'd had when first getting into industry? Anything that kind of like maybe you would have done a little bit differently, or things that took you a little bit longer to figure out?
Is there any advice when you wish you had? Yeah, I feel like I wish that someone had told me initially how much layers there were to the industry. Like, I don't think that that's taught or told or even talked about, I'd say, enough. Like, there's so many different rounds of marketing and advertising. There's so many different spaces to exist in, and there's so many different sectors to champion, that it kind of almost becomes quite overwhelming if you don't know what you're walking into. And sometimes you feel like, can I be a part of that conversation if I've never spoke about it before? Or can I do that if I've never worked there before? Do you know what I mean? And I feel like, so sort of trying to break into the industry, like, really look at the industry for what's happening. Like, look at what's happening culturally, look at the conversations that are happening, look at who's at the forefront of the industry, look at, you know, the types of agencies and the work they're doing, both behind the scenes and the work they're making. Like, really look at that. And I wasn't told to do that. I was just sort of like, yeah, like, go work for this agency, like, mate. And then I started to learn. I was, as I was there, I was learning, and then I became curious, and then went out of my way, and then somehow ended up in this place. But I genuinely think you would have a lot for you if you done that first, and not necessarily when you then get to whatever job or whatever it is you get to.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something I see as well with like a lot of students, a lot of the people who kind of come to us for advice as well, whether they've taken the uni route or not, that it can kind of seem like advertising industry is like, you can be an ad creative, you can be a creative director, you can be a producer. After that, people are a bit like,
what? Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
there's other bits, but
Yeah.
I think that's like one of the mad things about the creative industry. So like you say, the more that's kind of like the deeper you dive into it, it just gets, it's like the fucking Matrix, isn't it? It just gets more and more and more complex, and you're like, what? There are people whose job is this really specific specialist thing, and they've made, you know, they've kind of forged a career out of being the go-to person.
Yeah, literally. And I think it's so important, because then people don't have this anxiety of like, oh my gosh, I have to be a copywriter to be like, and they don't have that entering the industry. They feel quite confident in their skill and their value, because they know that actually I really already know that this person's done really well doing that, and actually I think that I'd be really best placed here. And it's so there's something so beautiful about that confidence, so that when you go to an agency or they cannot say no, because they're like, oh my gosh, like, you are literally the future, in fact. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's great if you can do that and be that.
So for you, is like, in terms of, obviously, you know, good deal of that learning was done like once you were in that agency environment. You kind of, you're on the, it's always a lot easier from the inside, right, to kind of see how things work. But I guess as your career has progressed, and you've gone off into all these different things, these different roles, how big or how useful, I suppose, in building the situations for those kind of opportunities to come up and to be able to like perform those roles, is like developing your network so that almost through the people you get to meet, you start to kind of learn even more about those industries and the kind of the worlds within them.
So like, how useful has my network been developing it?
Yeah.
Oh, like incredibly useful. I literally, I don't know if you guys are on Twitter, but literally a video of me went viral yesterday on Twitter talking about network and, you know, money, and people were getting it misconstrued, saying I was saying that money wasn't important, which is not true. I was saying that you actually really need to be able to have a network of people around you in order to build true understanding of power. And I still stand by that. And I think it's really important that everyone is worth knowing. Like, people think that like you need to know the ECD or I suppose the CEO or whatever, but it's just worth knowing everyone. It's worth knowing the intern, the cleaner in some instances, the CEO, the CFO, the client services person. Like, everyone is worth knowing. And for me, I feel like that's what people truly, I'd say, appreciate sometimes with me. Like, I don't necessarily care if you've done X or Y. I just want to know you and like understand, okay, what can we do, and like what is the value here, and how is that, like, you know what I mean? Like, I know this is like a really silly example, right? But I remember working at Iris and I used to always forget my card, right? But I knew the guy at the reception so well. Like, me and him just used to literally every morning I'd say morning, like whatever, to the point where literally every time I'd walk in, the door would be open. Like, like Danny's coming, like, he was my OG. Like, and I know that it's such a small thing, but literally, like, that is how much he was just like, anyone that came for me, he'd let them in. Oh, I'm here to see shit. He'll be like, all right, cool. Like, because he just trusted me, and we built that. And it was literally just from being nice. Do you know what I mean? And I just kind of feel like, even though that's a small example, but that's an example from him to then obviously building my relationship with Dan, the CEO. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, it became that thing. So even though I was an intern at Iris, everyone still knew that, oh, it's Shans, that's fine. Like, so the average, do you know what I mean? And I think that's really important, like, for your network, for your building, for your confidence, and that, you know, I think it really, what people say about you is really important. So yeah.
So follow-on question, I guess, to kind of like build on this a little bit more from Priya. How do you kind of go about building relationships with, like, you know, potential collaborators, employers? What's the kind of, I mean, I guess it's, you know, there's no blanket answer here, probably, like case to case, I'm sure it's different, but what's your start point?
It is always different. Like, sometimes they approach me, sometimes I approach them, but like, I think I've become a lot more direct now. So like, if people are like approaching me for something, I'm a bit like, okay, so what do you need from me? Like, like, what do you need from me? Like, what is it that you'd like me to do, or what is it that you feel like I can contribute? Because sometimes people come to me like with an idea, and I get it and stuff, and it's great, but I don't understand why they're coming to me. So for me, it's just more like intention. Like, I always go to people with intention. Like, you will never really see me approaching someone just because. Do you know what I mean? Like, it will always be either I want to talk about something with them because I find their opinion really interesting, and then I want to pass that on, or I'm doing some research, or I want to mentor, or I want to mentee, or I want to talk about, I don't know, maybe like create storytellers, for example, which you guys can all go and sign up to, because I've just released it on the Elephant Room Instagram. But the speakers on there, like, it's about intention. Like, oh, then maybe I want them to speak at the next event, or maybe I want to build a relationship for an event host. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's always an intention behind what I'm doing, and I'm well aware that not everything is like paid, so it's a value exchange. So I'm like, this is what I've done, and this is what I'm able to do. If you guys, I've got a community of people who are incredible. Do you want an introduction to that person? Are you, like, do you know what I mean? And I'm happy to facilitate that. So I just think that collaboration for me is about the exchange and what that value transaction is, and the intention of like what it is. Like, I'm quite what's the word? Like, every time people ask me to speak on a panel, for example, I'll always ask who I'm going to be alongside, because for me it's really important who I place my brand against and who I speak against. And I feel like I've noticed, again, like for example, especially when you're talking about stuff like representation or inclusion and diversity and stuff, like I don't want to entertain ignorance or bigotry or anything like that, so I just won't do it. So stuff like that is like, okay, I know that I've got my boundaries, and then obviously I know that I've got things that I'm just willing to do.
Amazing. So in response, and I think you were kind of like answering it there in response to Abby's question here, best way to reach out to a studio you'd love to work with or to someone is for you to like be really clear with that intention, and think really carefully as well about what that value exchange is, right?
Yeah, clear with intent, and just like, why them? Like, especially if there's someone who's popular, they're probably used to hearing compliments. Like, and I know that's really like a little bit like, what? But it is like, it's not enough. Like I always say, like, it's not enough to be like, I'm so ambitious and I'm so great. Like, it's just not enough. So maybe you've seen that studio or that person is being featured in, I don't know, Times magazine, and maybe you've got an internship there and you've been talking to someone and there's a relationship that you want to build because you've got a concept for something, and then you become so much more interesting, and the person's like, okay, sick, and they know my background. How do they even know that I did that? Like, and that's when I feel like it becomes like really cool. And like when people want to work with people, like, do you just want to work with them because you think they're popular, or do you genuinely want to work with them because you think what they do is great? And if it is, what is it that they've done that you think is great? How do you want to make an example of that? And how do you want to then help to continue that? And I think a lot of people don't necessarily think about all those things. But for me, I think that's really important. So all the people that I've like sort of admired in the past, or there's even people I've admired now and I haven't approached yet because I know that I don't have a reason to, but we will cross paths. So it's like, I want to have an intention and then a reason to approach this person or to work with them, because I don't want it to be a one-off relationship. I want it to be something that we continue to build, and I need to have that initial right intention and first impression proper before I move on. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so it's not like, it's, I guess the kind of the thing there as well is like there's no need to rush, right? If you're gonna work with someone, if they're doing interesting stuff, it's just, you don't have to like try and force it right now. It's like there will be a point, as long as you, and I think this is where like social networks can be really powerful, right? Because they give you that connection where you can like, you're never going to be that far away from keeping up to date on what people are doing and what projects they've got going on.
100%.
So it's then just more about biding your time, find that point where you're both like crossing paths really effectively, and be like, I've got it.
Yeah, 100%. Just pace yourself. You know what I mean? Like, it's so important that people do that. Like, there is absolutely no rush, and the industry is going nowhere. So, do you know what I mean? Like, it's not going to go anywhere. Like, it will still be here when you're doing your thing, and the right people will see you if you're doing the right type of work. And I truly believe that, because a lot of the opportunities, like, yes, I've definitely reached out to people, but a lot of the stuff that I've achieved, like, they've come to me based off the work that I'm doing. And sometimes it's like, it's great. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this person's messaging me. And then sometimes it's like, I was prepared for this day because this was a goal of mine, and now I'm finally in a position where I can actually say that I've done that. Do you know what I mean? So yeah.
And like two things I want to pick up on here is, because I don't know whether it's like part of it's like a cultural thing, but a lot of students, a lot of graduates, when they're kind of first getting into the industry or first kind of like having a go at like building a professional network, often there's a bit of, I think there's a bit of like trepidation in terms of like that value exchange, because a lot of the students I work with, it's kind of like, well, I'm just a student, I haven't done anything yet. Like, how do I bring value to this person who's like super experienced? I don't know, I kind of like, for me, I always feel that like as a creative, like, you're always like generating value, aren't you? Like, your ideas,
in fact,
value, and it's not necessarily, I don't think it's the case that if someone reaches out to you and you can see they're a student or a graduate, you're not expecting them to have like 10 years worth of experience.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
But it's kind of, it is fundamentally important to, I don't know, for me as well, like when it comes to like adding someone on LinkedIn, just to like segue into like LinkedIn chat, right? I get added all the time with like no message. People I've never met before, and I can see their name, I can see their like job title, but there's no other context. And I'm exactly where you are with that. I'm kind of like, okay, but what do you need from me? Like, I want to help, but if I don't know how, I'm a bit like,
you're a bit like, what? Yeah, and I think that is it, like, especially as a young person, because I know, for example, that I do add people, like, say, without a message, but that person definitely knows who I am and they know who I am. So we're now just connecting. But there is people who I've like never spoken to before. Or in fact, I've probably found their email, I've emailed them and then I've LinkedIn added them and then told them I've sent them an email and I'm adding them on LinkedIn.
yeah.
Like, so there are ways to like look at that, but especially as a student, like if you're a young person, I get students adding me sometimes, like be an engineer, and I'm like, this is so random, like, but and maybe then maybe they just want to follow me. I don't know, like I do accept and it's fine, but it would be great to sort of be able to be like, even if you've got like a one message that you send, like, hi, I'm such and such and this is what I'm doing and I've been following your work and now I just want to, do you know, and it's like, oh, okay, cool, like, nice to meet you, thanks for adding, like, I can't wait until we cross paths, do you know what I mean? And I think as a student, there's I think you just need to understand approach, and that's just with anyone, like, so that's whether you're approaching for a job, whether you're approaching for an opportunity, whether you're approaching for a LinkedIn connect, like anything that you just need to learn the approach, because people might not know who you are or people might not understand the value yet, but you need to be able to display that, and quite quickly. And I think that especially for people who want to get into advertising, like students, they're a bit like, oh, I find it so hard to get into advertising, how do I do that? I'm just going to add everyone I know in advertising. But that's like, it's just not the way. Like, be smart and understand, what does advertising need from people? So for example, let's just say I'm friends with everyone at GWAT, everyone at She Said So, got loads of fashion friends, I know loads of photographers. They're all the people I've got on my LinkedIn, and I've got no one from advertising. But there's one agency that I'm targeting, and I know that they do shoots, they do production, they do videos. I can be like, well, I know this person from GWAT, I know that you've done this shoot before, I've got this photographer on my line, I'm actually a part of this community, I know music really well, I've created this playlist, how about that? And they'll be like, what? Wait, how do you know that? And it's because you've strategically targeted them. You've got all the people on your book that they want, like, you know who they're trying to be, you know where they're trying to be in culture, the types of people they like. So many agencies are trying to talk to people like Galdem, people like GWAP, or, you know, people like Intern, people like Lost Coat, like so many people. And if you are the person that knows what they're doing, when their next talk is, when their next event is, you can be that insight for that agency. That is incredible value. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's just about understanding how to strategically approach that.
And is that, I mean, is the root of that basically research?
Yeah, literally, yeah. Research.
I mean, that's it, isn't it? It's kind of like, it's the difference between reaching out to someone and it seeming, again, going back to that word, that intention, it's seeming kind of like you could be reaching out to anyone. It seems a bit impersonal.
Yeah.
To, without being like hella creepy and being, so I know that this is your date of birth. I saw you, you know, go for your lunch here yesterday. Was it tasty, your sandwich? Without like going in there, it's showing that kind of, it's like it's commitment, isn't it? I think we're all like, human beings are like ego-driven creatures, right? So
of course.
If you find out that somebody within reason has like spent a little bit of their day trying to understand more about you and what you do, that's a pretty good start potentially to a relationship, isn't it? They're prepared to take the time to put the work in.
100%. And I think that's the importance of it. Like, you just got to be able to understand, and that's why like that goes back to that first question about, you know, like the layers of the industry, and like whole wishing that you knew X and Y. Like, that's why that research is important, of understanding those layers, because then if you're super passionate about, like, let's say marketing and sustainability, you know the agencies that are also passionate about that, and the agencies that you want to work with that are doing that. Because, do you know what I mean? And I feel like that is the kind of thing you want to be able to do, is like break down, like, what do you want when you are entering the industry, and how do you target those different specifics.
And is that as well, like, part of what you were talking about before about being smart, in that you could spend the rest of your life like networking, but it's probably easier if you do that research and you make sure that the people that you are reaching out to, you have like targeted, you do know that they like align with you, so that you're not, like you were saying, you're not just like adding everyone who works in advertising on LinkedIn. You're building a really, like, a network that is tailored to you.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, but yeah, that's exactly what you're trying to do. You're trying to build a powerful network.
Yeah, and in that regard, like, it's why is LinkedIn such an important place to be in that sense, in terms of trying to build a network that's really powerful and valuable to you?
What makes LinkedIn such a creative place to be, important to be as a creative? I think, right, that a lot of people as creatives, young creatives particularly, we separate ourselves from this corporate and business world, thinking that because we're creative, we don't need to be a part of it. And it's, I mean, I don't do that. I see a lot of people do it, and I think it's quite strange, because essentially, as a creative, it's those businesses and those corporates that are giving you the work, because it's going through them. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you know the process of an advertising agency, the creatives are doing the work, but it's the account manager that's probably presenting it, or going, you're doing that liaison with loads of them. And it's so important to know who those people are and understand that they know who you are. So if you are the best creative, or you consider yourself to be an incredible creative, those people need to know that, because when they're hiring for the incredible creative, or when they're hiring a person to do their best picture, they're going to want the best creative to do that. And if you claim that you are that, you need to find yourself in that space and infiltrate. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can't claim to be like this amazing person in advertising, but then I'm not in advertising. Do you know what I mean? So you have to sort of be a great creative, but be a great creative in the spaces where other people will see, so that you can create great creative work.
Yeah. So I think there's that kind of like moves on to Kim's question quite nicely, which is, how do you get noticed when you're reaching out to people? And I guess is that what you're saying? It's kind of very much about making sure you're in the right place in front of the right people, I guess.
Yeah, and also, like, it kind of goes back to, like, who do you want to be noticed by? Who do you want to be reached out by to? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, who are the people that you think, oh my gosh, like, I'd love to be here one day. Like, I know I'd love to be on Forbes, for example. Like, I know that. So I'm looking at who works there, who writes, who contributes, the other features they've done. Like, I know all of that. And it's like, it's a type of thing, like, who and what do you want to be reached out by? Who do you want to be reached out by, and what do you want to be reached out for? Like, do you want to be giving your opinion? Do you want to be someone who's a cultural commentator? Do you want to just be sort of showcasing your work? Are you trying to get like more PR features? Do you want to be in trade? Do you want to be more cultural? Like where do you want to be? And if you do know all those things, that's when you've got a target. Okay, so who's the lead editor there? Who's the lead culture editor there? Who do you know that commissions the work? When do their commissions need to be in by? Like, and submissions, like, all those things you need to understand. And I think that when you actually learn that, then people will be like, okay, like, this person reached out to me. They already know this. They know that we're looking for that. They've seen that we're doing this competition, and they're about a day early, sick. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, I know for sure that I remember all those people who are just like everywhere and pushing everything and emailing and researching. Like, it's crazy. And I just think that that's what you have to just look at, like, who do I want to be reached out by, like, and how do I want to build a relationship with them? How do I want them to know me? How do I want them to remember me? Like, it's all those things that you've got to ask yourself. So it's quite a subjective question, to be honest, because for me, like, I know that I don't want to be known in advertising, but by default I'm known in advertising because culturally I'm everywhere else. Do you know what I mean? And I work in advertising, so campaign will probably pick me up, or the drum might pick me up, but they're not necessarily the magazines that I'm like, oh my gosh, I really need to be in campaign, I really need to be in the drum. Like, I'm not necessarily thinking that, but by default I'm writing different things about Afropunk. I'm super intrigued in this agency and what that agency's doing. I'm talking about this type of work by that advertising, and just naturally trade news picks that up because they're like, oh, she's talking about advertising and she's a little bit different, and oh, that's interesting, she also crosses into this cultural bit. Oh, it might be good to just get her opinion on X, or do you know what I mean? And I feel like that's kind of how it kind of comes about, because by default things just also just get attracted to you.
Yeah, absolutely. To pick back up on one of the things you were saying there in terms of like emailing, we've got a question here when it comes to how to avoid being too irritating. How many times would you say it's okay to follow up? And an extension of this question, I often get asked a lot, how long should you leave it before you follow up?
If you met the person, say today, I'd follow up today. If you're asking a question, maybe after that, I'd follow up, maybe leave it about 2-3 days. And then if it's like on a Friday, leave it until, like, let's say you followed up and it's on that Friday, let the weekend go. So then the Monday, that's the trick. So they've had the weekend. Obviously people kind of check their emails on a Sunday, like as they go into Monday. And then I'd follow up again, like I'd probably like Wednesday. But if I'm honest, again, like until that person says stop, because I know I have literally been called out for like not answering back an email by like a young person, and I rate it. Like I'm so sorry. Like I genuinely miss my emails. I genuinely do sometimes, and I think I've replied, but I haven't. And they're like, you've done this before. And I'm like, oh no, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm not doing it intentionally. And then I'll be like, okay, let's book a Zoom. Like, let's book something in the diary. Yeah. And then we can chat. So, and then I know, because sometimes the exchange of email gets like a little bit like, you know, a little bit long. And for me, that works. Some people, they have PAs and like all of that. So I don't know, you've just got to ask the PA, and I would just find a way around it. Are they going to be at an event? Are they going to, like, do you know someone else that's a really good friend that can probably put in a word? Like, you know, find ways around it, because that is really important as well. Like finding ways around stuff. Follow them on social media. Can you get into their DMs on Twitter? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I know that I'm active in my DMs, so people can literally approach me in my DMs. And I'm also active on my email, but if you approach me on my DM, I'm probably going to see that first. Do you know what I mean? So I do think that you just got to find ways around it. But until they say stop, really, obviously don't email them like every single day, like. But yeah, like until they say stop.
But I think it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I think a lot of, again, like I totally get it. When you start out, it can feel like somebody not getting back to you is like. It's like personal.
Yeah, it feels personal, and it's sometimes disheartening. But don't take it personal. No. And I know that it's such a hard thing to say, especially when you're starting out. You're like, no one's responding to me. This is so annoying. But you know what? If you send 10 emails, one person will respond. And sometimes that one person is all you need. Yeah. Like, and go where you're accepted, and just keep pushing. That's all I'd say. Yeah. Like, you know, don't give up. Definitely not.
If it makes anyone feel any better, I once went, how long was it? I once went 3 months sending emails to people, and it was like quiet. And I'm talking like quiet. And I was like, oh, I guess like I'm doing something seriously wrong, or like people are just kind of over the whole intern thing. I found out that like our emails had been blacklisted, so like nobody was getting them. They were just flying straight into people's junk boxes. It wasn't until I tried to follow up with someone from like a Gmail account, and I got like a out of office bounce back straight away, and I was like, oh. And then I like sent again from the intern one, got nothing. I was like, holy, honestly, like 3 months of my life just completely gone.
See, that's crazy. Yeah, and always do that. Check technicals, like to just check technicals. Yeah, definitely always do that, because that's important as well. So, you know what? I'm so sorry. My iPhone battery is, I don't know why it's so bad. Like, I've literally charged it and it's still like it's going to think. So I'm going to get my charger.
Okay, good.
But give me some.
But yeah, please, folks, when it comes to emails, like, don't be disheartened. There's loads and loads and loads of reasons why somebody may not get back to you, either immediately or at all. They seem like they're personal. Like 99 out of 100 really aren't. So like Shannie says, if there's other ways to get in touch with people, try that. I know this is not necessarily ideal advice for right now, but as well, like as Shan said, like events.
Yeah.
When we get back to like actually being able to like go to places together, a cold email versus being the person who went to the event and came up to the speaker at the end and was just like, oh, I thought that was really interesting. I've just got one question sorry, I didn't like the one time to ask. Start that conversation.
Yeah.
Exchange social media. Then if you send them an email, it's a totally different ball game to just being like a completely new name that's just you don't even then have to worry so much about maybe I'm in the spam. Like if you DM them going, oh, did you get my message? Did you get my email?
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to spend 3 months like I did, all in a fluster. Anyway, let's move on to some more questions.
Yeah, you can see me like this, right? It's cool. Okay.
Yeah. No,
cool.
It's good, Shan. We're keeping it fresh, aren't we?
Okay.
Let me see. I don't know if I can see the start of this question. But I'm sorry. If you're still here, please let us know what the first part of the question is. But we've got here, I'm doubting myself and my skills after taking a gap year between second and third year. So I guess how I'd maybe, if you don't mind, slightly kind of contextualize this question is, if networking feels like a thing that you've kind of got to be working on, ongoing, right? So if you've taken a bit of a break for whatever reason, what would and understandably then, like, things aren't flowing quite as freely as they were.
Yeah.
What would your advice be for kind of like getting things ramped up again?
Oh, that person's here. Hi, I was just asking advice about getting into third year. Nice one. Like, you know what? I think sometimes when you do take, just naturally from anything, when you take a break from anything, you will kind of feel like, oh, like a little bit disorientated a bit. Like that's such a natural feeling.
Mm-hmm.
But to any student, I think, and this kind of goes across the board, first year, second year, or third year, you are at such an advantage to experiment and research and discover and be curious, because you're not in your particularly like full-time job yet. It's low risk if you do a project. Like, you've got years ahead of you to enter and get things wrong. And I can't stress this enough. Like, it is so important that you just try anything you comes to mind. Just try, because there is no risk to it. There's no brand attached to it. There's no compliances of like legal, and you're just trying. And when you do eventually get to that place where you're applying for a job, or maybe you want to do a pitch with someone, or you want to do freelance, because you've got so much resilience built up in you, and because you've done so much discovery and curious, you're good, because they'll say to you, oh, have you ever tried to put on a party and da da da, or have you ever worked with someone who, I don't know, has never really had your skill set before and you've had to do something on like, and you'll be like, oh yeah, actually one time when me and my friends were in uni, we tried to throw this and we did, and this is kind of and do you know what I mean? And even then at that point you will have more resources, more network who will be willing to help you, and it won't fail. About it could, obviously, because anything can fail, but it's at a very low risk too, because you've already done it. So I just think that, like, there's this crazy pressure that all students have. So again, even uni, college, whatever, when you're approaching exams or dissertation or mocks or anything, and you literally feel like if you do not pass or if you do not get the grade that's expected of you, then it's the end of your life. Like, that is anxiety, and that will pass. And don't put so much pressure on yourself where you lose your creativity or you lose your love of like curiousness. Like, don't do that, because what actually will get you that amazing grade or what will get you that amazing pass is your difference. And like, I've seen it. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen, like, there's a recent girl, she done a dissertation on the Fiat 500 Twitter, and that to me is so fascinating, like that study. And like, you just giggled, Alex. It's also so funny, like as if you even did that. But the cultural value that she's just created for people to really understand, and all because she's on Twitter, is just so great. And she's allowed herself to be curious and done it through her studies, and that's the kind of stuff you should do. And like, you know, like my dissertation was on the emancipation of the black female body, looking at Nicki Minaj and Beyonce and Josephine. Like, do you know what I mean? And that was my time to sort of really dig deep into like hip hop culture and all that kind of stuff, things that I'm really passionate about. And I feel like if you are a student, then that now's your time to not, you know, be experimental and, you know, rediscover stuff and be curious. And you will always feel that element of anxiety. And I can't say that that's going to go away. But by you practicing things that you love, it won't even feel like work. Do you know
100%.
what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
100%.
Yeah.
I think it's such great advice, Shan, because it's as well, you know, a lot of the time we get asked, you know, how do you stand out as a student or a recent graduate?
Yeah.
If you've done projects about things that you care about and are interested in, rather than things that you think you have to do projects on, your portfolio is miles different and miles more impactful than everyone who's just done a load of competition briefs. No, like, you know, fine, competition briefs, yeah, it's okay. But that personality is what people are trying to get a lot of the time. I think we had a question on that. Yeah, from Priya. What would make you more likely to hire or work with someone? Would you say that personality is a big part of that, Shan?
Yeah. I'm a big fan of character profiling. I think that, like, you can be an amazing graphic designer or an amazing person who can copyright. You can be all those things. But actually, what's going to make me super curious about you is, like, how much embedded are you in terms of, like, social politics, or do you care about stuff like that? And if not, why? And have you, like, are you a book reader? What are you reading? Like, what's the different insight? Like, that kind of stuff to me is so fascinating, and that's what truly brings, I think, difference to a team. Like, the element of sort of being able to understand this person does that way, and that person's super cool because they are really into, I don't know, dogs and saving animals and animal cruelty and stuff like that. And then this person over here is like a music junkie and a sneaker collector. Put the two together and you don't even know what you'll get. Do you know what I mean? Like, and for me, that is what's like crazy exciting. Do you know what I mean? Like, so for like, people always look at me and Dan, and I think that's why people find the story so fascinating of, like, the CEO and the intern, because we're so different. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's like a super family man and like these experiences, and he's into business and loves his podcast, and I'm this sort of person who just loves listening to hip hop, and I hardly read a book, but I love an ebook though. Do you know what I mean? And it's like you put the two together, and then it comes really curious conversation. So for me, yeah, personality is really important, and also as well, like work, like I think anyway. But your workplace, they want to be quite prideful of you, like, and happy and proud. Like they want to be like, oh my gosh, that our intern or our person is doing X, and they're the chess player across the country, or do you know what I mean? They're super interested in stuff like that. So everything is worth knowing about you, I believe, and I think it's important that you stand proud of it as well.
Yeah, 100%. Like, and I'd say, in kind of summary of that, like if you are a creative professional, like the biggest value that you'll carry like with you throughout your career is like who you are and what you're into. Like that's don't freak out about the other stuff. Like your perspective in any creative scenario, like Shannie says, like the more diverse voices, diverse experiences you've got in that room, the better the work's going to be. It's just the way it works. Shan, we're running out of time a little bit, so we're going to try and like hit a little bit of a quick fire round so we can make it through these questions. So let's do a couple LinkedIn related ones, because we did promise we were going to get deep into LinkedIn. Is it worth getting premium, do you think?
I think if it's not in your price range and affordability, no, I wouldn't. I don't think it's necessary. I would never encourage someone to spend like £50-60 a month when they can just really be resourceful as possible. When you've got Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, all of those combined, then you don't necessarily need to get a LinkedIn premium. So no, you just have to be as resourceful as possible, and like going back to that thing about strategically targeting people.
100%. Off the back of that, another one here. What's the best platform to create connections on? LinkedIn, the dots, Daisy?
I'd say LinkedIn for me personally. And I love the user experience. I quite like being able to like throw debate out there in my statuses and articles. I like that my profile's a one-pager. Like I'm just happy with how it operates as a function and how I can operate on that channel. So for me, it's LinkedIn.
Yeah, but again, like I think the thing about social platforms when it comes to developing a network is they all have different strengths, right? They all have slightly different communities on there.
Definitely.
Like Shan says, it's kind of like you be strategic in which ones you think you need to be on. Like test them out, and again, if there's like premium ones, like make sure you've maxed out all your imagination in terms of like ways to like use and like hack the free versions first. But it really does depend on your specialism. I think for me, like you, Shannie, like LinkedIn, it's kind of like if I want to get business done, what I like about LinkedIn is that unlike Instagram, which is actually, I think is a business place as well, but it's kind of like hiding behind this like, oh, it's this veneer of being a more social thing. LinkedIn, it's like if you are on there and you're engaging in it, you're kind of almost wearing like a little sign around your neck that says like open for business. Kind of like that's the expected conversation, so it doesn't feel as like weird to people if you're reaching out to them being like, hey, let's like maybe there's something, maybe we can have that value exchange, maybe we can do something together.
For sure.
Let me see what else we got. How do you differentiate? It's a good one for you because you're hella active on a couple of these at least. How do you differentiate what you post on LinkedIn versus Instagram versus Twitter?
So for me, firstly, obviously Instagram is a very visual like platform. So a lot of the posts are either about me, like as in like just me chilling, and then the captions are, I'm trying to always be like quite honest, so that with my thoughts or what I'm doing, or like an achievement, and then I use my stories for kind of everything else. LinkedIn is always around representation in the industry or anything advertising focused, or anything I'm trying to sort of maybe push beyond that. So whether it be a Girls Let's Talk event or
something that I saw, like a list or, you know, like an article, so something like that. And then Twitter is kind of, I'd say, like me just talking out loud. So so a combination of all those things. Don't really post pictures on Twitter, not often anyway. So like I try and like, I'm really, really, really passionate about being yourself and your authentic self. So LinkedIn, the way how I be like, yo, everyone holla at me, this is what I'm saying, I'll speak like that on LinkedIn because that's how I talk. And if people, I feel like that's also a little bit of my superpower, because people know that in debate I can articulate myself well. Like obviously I don't talk like that, but it's a part of my personality, do you know what I mean? So it's a really great way to sort of just differentiate yourself in a way that comes across as still appropriate but different. And then same with like Instagram and LinkedIn, I mean Instagram and Twitter. Like I'll like Twitter, I'll say my thoughts, but I'd never say something like inappropriate, or do you know what I mean? Because I'm not an inappropriate person. So I feel like I just remain myself across all. But Instagram is a lot more visual, so there'll be just the pictures of me or like my achievement or something I'm proud of or something if it's cool. Yeah, so that's kind of how I do it.
Amazing. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but we could go and go with this, couldn't we? Shannie, thank you so much for your time.
Thank
for all
you
your
for having me.
Everyone, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for asking your questions. You'll be able to watch this, I think, on our IGTV soon. Next week we've got Kate Moros. So any of you graphic designers out there, please tune in for that. Shan, thanks so much. Everyone go follow Shannie.
Thanks, Alex.
If you don't already, Shannie loves.
Yeah.